Sometimes the silence feels louder than words ever could. You reach out, maybe with a text, a look, a gentle invitation, and what comes back is distance, coldness, a pulling away. And it's easy, so easy, to make that mean something about you. You start to wonder, am I too much, too needy, not enough? That's the story pain tells us when we don't have all the facts. But the truth is, when someone avoids closeness, when they turn inward or away, it's not always because of you. Sometimes it's the echo of something much older, a wound carved out long before you ever showed up. What you're witnessing is not rejection, it's protection. They're not pushing you away. They're pushing away the risk of being hurt again. Avoidant behavior is like emotional armor. People wear it because at some point in their life, vulnerability didn't feel safe. Maybe they grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, or affection came with conditions. Maybe their attempts to connect were once met with punishment or betrayal. So now they protect their heart the only way they know how, by keeping it at a distance. And that armor? It can look like detachment, like cool independence, or even indifference. But underneath that armor, there's often a very tender heart, longing to feel safe enough to open. You may never see that softness unless you stop taking the distance personally and start understanding it compassionately. This doesn't mean you excuse mistreatment. Boundaries are still sacred, but what shifts is the story you tell yourself. Instead of spiraling into self-blame, you can begin to see their behavior as a coping mechanism, not a verdict on your value. People with avoidant tendencies are not cold, they're cautious. Love for them feels like a risk. Intimacy feels like a battlefield. And so their instinct is to retreat. But retreat doesn't mean they don't care. It means they're scared. And fear rarely announces itself with honesty. It hides behind silence, sarcasm, and stone walls. You don't need to fix or heal anyone. But when you understand that avoidance is a defense, not a rejection, you step out of the role of the pursuer and into the power of empathy. You stop chasing and you start seeing clearly. And clarity, true, soul-deep clarity, is what frees you from the ache of misunderstanding. Most importantly, when you see their behavior for what it is, you stop trying to earn love and start remembering that you were already enough before they ever shut down. So let me know when you're ready for the next expanded keynote. There comes a moment in every heart's journey when you have to choose peace over pursuit. You find yourself waiting on a reply, replaying the last conversation, wondering what you could have said differently to make them stay, to make them open, to make them love you the way you love them. And in all that waiting, something sacred gets lost, your center. We're taught from an early age that if we try hard enough, love will come. That if we show up, give more, bend a little further, someone will finally choose us. But love doesn't bloom from effort alone. Real love, healthy love, recognizes you as you are. You should never have to beg to be seen or shrink to be held. Detaching from the outcome doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop making someone else's behavior the measure of your worth. It means you learn to let go of the fantasy that if you do everything right, they'll finally stay. You let go because you've learned that clinging to someone emotionally unavailable only deepens the ache. When you anchor yourself in self-worth, you begin to realize that what you bring to the table is not just valuable, it's sacred. Your softness, your loyalty, your deep emotional availability, that is a gift, not a weakness. But you can't force someone to receive a gift they're not ready for, no matter how beautifully it's wrapped. There's a quiet kind of power in loving someone without trying to control the story. You show up with honesty, you express what's true, and then you release the need to make it go your way. That release, that detachment, isn't defeat. It's wisdom, it's maturity. It's choosing inner stability over outer validation. When you let go of trying to make it work, you start to notice where your energy is leaking. You stop investing in one-sided conversations, in relationships where you're the only one reaching across the silence. And slowly, you reclaim parts of yourself that you've given away in hopes of being chosen. Self-worth doesn't mean you walk away from every challenge. It means you know when something is no longer nurturing your spirit. It means you choose relationships where love doesn't have to be chased, it flows. Where you don't have to audition for affection or translate your soul into smaller pieces to be accepted. Love that is truly aligned will not require you to abandon yourself. It will not feel like a performance. It will feel like exhale, not exhaustion. And when you stop chasing the outcome, you begin to realize that your peace is too expensive to trade for someone else's emotional availability. Let me know when you're ready for the next keynote expansion. There is a kind of love that whispers instead of shouts. It doesn't demand answers or deadlines. It doesn't corner or chase. It waits, not passively, but patiently. It understands that people who protect their hearts with distance are not trying to hurt you. They're trying to survive in the only way they know. For the avoidant heart, closeness feels like a risk. Every step toward intimacy can stir up fear. Fear of being controlled, fear of being exposed, fear of losing themselves. When love feels like pressure, they retreat. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much, and they don't know how to hold it. So many people make the mistake of thinking that persistence will break down those walls, that intensity will finally break through, that more effort, more talking, more urgency will force connection. But love isn't force. And pressure only pushes the avoidant person further away. What truly reaches them isn't intensity, it's consistency, a soft kind of strength. A grounded presence that says, you are safe here whether you come closer or need space. When they sense that there's no trap, no manipulation, they start to breathe easier. And when people can breathe, they can feel. Safety isn't created through persuasion. It's created through trust, through showing, not telling, through the quiet power of staying emotionally regulated, even when someone else is pulling back, through respecting their pace without abandoning your own needs. Safety says, I see you. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to be real with you. If you want someone to come forward, they need to feel that they can do so without losing themselves, that they can have emotions without being overwhelmed, that they can speak their truth without being punished or rushed. This is how avoidant hearts begin to soften, not through pressure, but through peace. It may feel counterintuitive, especially when your own longing is loud. But the deepest connection doesn't come from pushing, it comes from presence. From letting the other person know that you're not trying to get something from them. You're simply choosing to be with them. Pressure says, hurry up and love me. Safety says, take your time and I'll honor the truth, whatever it may be. And it is that kind of love, the kind that honors without gripping, that has the potential to reach even the most guarded heart. If you want someone to come forward, they need to feel that they can do so without losing themselves, that they can have emotions without being overwhelmed, that they can speak their truth without being punished or rushed. This is how avoidant hearts begin to soften, not through pressure, but through peace. It may feel counterintuitive, especially when your own longing is loud. But the deepest connection doesn't come from pushing, it comes from presence. From letting the other person know that you're not trying to get something from them. You're simply choosing to be with them. Pressure says, hurry up and love me. Safety says, take your time and I'll honor the truth, whatever it may be. And it is that kind of love, the kind that honors without gripping, that has the potential to reach even the most guarded heart. Ready for the next one? Just say the word. There's a moment in every connection where you have to decide what you're speaking to, the mask or the heart. The ego wants to be right, to win, to protect itself at all costs. But the soul wants truth. The soul wants depth. The soul wants to be seen, not just understood. When you're trying to reach someone who guards their heart, it's tempting to slip into strategy, to calculate your next move, to craft the perfect message, to figure out what to say to make them respond. But connection isn't a chess game. It's not about winning. It's about being real. And the moment you start performing, you disconnect from your own truth. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's clarity. It's choosing to show up without the armor. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only path to intimacy that doesn't require manipulation. When you say what you really feel, without blame, without agenda, you create space for honesty to enter the room. The ego resists this. It wants control. It wants to protect you from rejection. But the ego can't build a bridge between two people. It can only build walls. And if you keep speaking from your defenses, the other person will stay in theirs too. Someone has to go first. Someone has to step out from behind the script. Speaking to the soul means asking, what is real for me right now? Not what will make them stay, not what will make me look unbothered, but what is true even if it's messy, even if it's uncertain. That level of honesty doesn't guarantee the outcome you want, but it guarantees that you are living from your integrity. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who is afraid of closeness, but you can offer your truth. And sometimes that truth is as simple as, I care about you, and I know I can't force you to meet me where I am, but I want to be honest about where I stand. That kind of honesty isn't heavy, it's human. When someone hears you speak from your soul, not your fear, they feel the difference. You become an invitation, not a demand. You become a mirror, not a pressure. And slowly, their own defenses may begin to quiet down because they sense that this is something different, something deeper, something safe. You don't have to say the perfect thing. You just have to say the true thing. Because the soul doesn't respond to tactics. It responds to presence. And when two souls are present with each other, even the thickest armor can begin to crack. Let me know when you'd like the next one. There is a quiet kind of love that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't grip. It stands still and strong, not because it doesn't care, but because it honors freedom. To hold space is to say, I love you enough to let you be, even when that means letting go of what I hoped would be. So many of us were taught that love means holding on tightly, that if we just love hard enough, try long enough, stay patient enough, the other person will finally meet us. But that's not love. That's fear dressed up as devotion. And fear is always trying to prevent loss, while love is always making room for truth. Holding space means creating emotional room for someone else to exist exactly as they are, without trying to mold them into what makes us feel more secure. It's a radical act of trust. Trust that you are enough. Trust that they will choose if they want to stay. Trust that your peace doesn't have to depend on their closeness. To grip someone emotionally is to say, I need you to be different so I can feel safe. But to hold space is to say, I'll keep my heart open and I'll let you come toward me on your own. That is not weakness, it's strength. It's knowing that love cannot thrive in captivity. It needs breath, it needs choice, it needs freedom. You don't have to fix the silence. You don't have to chase them into clarity. Holding space means you sit in your own presence and allow the other person to navigate their own emotional landscape without trying to rescue or control. That's how real connection grows. Not from pressure, but from permission. When you hold space, you stop measuring love by how close they are. You start measuring it by how honest you can be. And sometimes honesty sounds like, I care about you, and I'm not going to force something. That doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're giving room. Holding space invites the other person to take responsibility for their side of the relationship. Not with guilt, not with ultimatums, but with clarity. Because when someone feels that they are not being pushed or managed, they're more likely to move toward the connection, not away from it. This kind of love doesn't say, stay so I can feel okay. It says, be free, and if your heart chooses me, let it be real. Because love that's real doesn't need to grip. It needs to trust. And trust always begins with letting go of control. Let me know when you'd like the next keynote expanded. When someone pulls away, our first instinct is often to move closer, to fill the silence, to demand clarity, to fix the discomfort with urgency. But when you're dealing with someone who leans into avoidance, that urgency feels like pressure. It magnifies their fear. And what they need most in that moment is not more noise, it's more calm. Avoidant people are hypersensitive to emotional intensity, not because they don't care, but because closeness can feel overwhelming. When they sense a spike in your energy, whether it's anger, anxiety, or desperation, they retreat even further. Not to hurt you, but to regain a sense of safety within themselves. If you meet their withdrawal with panic, it reinforces their belief that intimacy brings chaos. But if you respond with groundedness, with steadiness, you offer a different experience. You show them that closeness can exist without control. That connection can be spacious, not suffocating. Mirroring calm doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means tending to your emotions before reacting. It means pausing long enough to ask yourself, am I responding to them or to my fear of abandonment? That kind of self-awareness is what breaks the cycle of anxious avoidant conflict. When you stay emotionally regulated, you model what emotional safety looks like. You become an anchor, not a storm. And people who fear closeness start to realize they don't have to lose themselves to be loved. That's what opens the door to deeper connection. Not emotional intensity, but emotional stability. Mirroring is about reflection, not reaction. It's about staying connected to your truth without demanding immediate resolution. When you reflect calm, you give the other person permission to relax their defenses. You show them that they don't have to run just because things get emotionally real. It takes maturity to sit with the discomfort of someone else's distance without escalating it, to hold your center while they search for theirs. But that maturity is what creates space for trust to grow. Not by doing more, but by being more present, more grounded, more at peace with the unknown. When you mirror calm, you become the invitation instead of the interruption. And for someone who has learned to protect their heart through withdrawal, your stillness becomes a quiet reassurance that maybe, just maybe, they don't have to run this time. Let me know when you're ready for the next expanded keynote. Love will sometimes ask you to stand still, and other times it will ask you to walk away. The challenge is knowing the difference. When you're connected to someone with avoidant tendencies, it can feel like you're always in limbo, always waiting, always hoping. But love that costs your peace is too expensive to keep paying for with your sanity. There's no shame in wanting to stay, in believing in someone, in hoping they'll turn around, soften, show up. But there's a difference between holding space for someone and losing yourself in the waiting. When you start to question your worth, your voice, your joy, that's when the line has been crossed. Staying is powerful when it's rooted in choice, not fear. When you can stay without betraying yourself. When you can say, I'm here, but I'm also whole without this. That kind of presence is love in its purest form. But if staying means constantly silencing your needs, that's no longer love. That's self-abandonment. Stepping back is not the same as giving up. It's a sacred act of self-respect. It says, I love you, but I won't keep shrinking to fit into a space that was never meant to contain all of me. It's not a punishment. It's not a strategy. It's a decision made from clarity, not bitterness, not revenge, not fear. Sometimes love waits. It holds space without pressure. It trusts that if someone is meant to meet you, they will rise in their own time. But other times, love walks away, not because it has stopped caring, but because it finally started caring about you too, about your mental health, your emotional well-being, your life. Knowing when to stay and when to go is not about being right. It's about being honest. Honest about what you need, about what's real, about what's no longer working. It's about recognizing the difference between patience and self-neglect, between loyalty and self-sacrifice. You can stay with an open heart and still hold boundaries. You can step back without closing your heart completely. Both choices can be acts of love if they come from truth. The real work is not just in loving others, but in loving yourself enough to know when the energy you're giving is no longer being returned. There is no formula, no perfect timing, just a quiet knowing that lives beneath all the noise. That moment when you realize, I can't force them to choose me, but I can choose myself. Let me know when you're ready for the final keynote expansion. When you're drawn to someone who keeps their heart guarded, it's easy to lose yourself in the process of trying to be what they need. You soften your edges, mute your voice, hide your true feelings, all in hopes that your light won't scare them away. But the truth is, dimming your light never brings someone closer. It only leaves you feeling smaller and more alone. The key to reaching an avoidant heart is not in changing who you are, but in standing firmly in your own truth. When you stay rooted in yourself, your values, your dreams, your emotional honesty, you become magnetic in a way that chasing or molding never could. You send a clear message, I am whole, with or without you. There's a deep, quiet power in knowing who you are and what you deserve. It means you won't settle for crumbs or excuses. You won't tolerate emotional games or disappearing acts. You carry yourself with the dignity of someone who understands that love is not about losing yourself to be loved. It's about finding someone who celebrates the fullness of who you are. When you lose yourself in trying to reach someone, you risk losing the very essence that makes you lovable. You teach others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you're always shrinking, always apologizing for your needs, you create a pattern that's hard to break, both for you and for them. The right person doesn't flee from your light, they lean into it. They don't ask you to be less vulnerable or less intense. They meet you with open arms, open heart, and open mind. They don't hide from your passion or your pain. They hold space for it because it's part of what makes you real. Rooting yourself in who you are also means embracing your imperfections. It means loving the messy, beautiful, complicated parts of yourself that you might be tempted to hide. Because real connection is built on authenticity, not perfection. And the right person will see your realness as an invitation, not a threat. Sometimes the most powerful way to reach someone else is to first fully reach yourself, to say, I am enough. To live that truth every day. When you do, you create a magnetic field that doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't plead, it invites. And that kind of love lasts. When you refuse to lose yourself for anyone, you reclaim your power. You become the source of your own fulfillment. And in that space of self-possession, you give the other person the freedom to choose, to come closer or to step back. Either way, you remain whole.